forest issues, which is all of these fires. You've been introduced to the State Forestry Director, Laura McCarthy. She's here in the room to answer questions. And also we have our Acting Adjutant General, General Aguilar from the National Guard, who has been very present, particularly in the CAF and Hermit Peak Fire. Approximately a week ago, I provided this kind of a broad update from the Emergency Operations Center, and we talked about 16 counties in New Mexico who were dealing with 20 to 21 fires at the time. Every fire, particularly this early in fire season, is an emergency reaction situation, right? All personnel on the ground, everyone figuring out ways to make sure that we're managing and mitigating, save lives. Today, I want folks to know that we have 5 active fires in 6 New Mexico counties. Now, while for us this is productive news because it means that we can continue to really focus our efforts on the highest risk, most complex fires, those are in the north, clearly. But the other 2 fires, one in Socorro, one in Catron County, the Bear Trap and Turkey fires, they are high-risk fires in the context of their potential. So I don't want to minimize, and again, it's barely May, that there's a lot of fire activity occurring in the state of New Mexico that's requiring statewide attention, and they will continue to get appropriate statewide attention. I think most New Mexicans are seeing such horrific images from the CAF and Hermit Peak Fire, and we want to talk mostly about what's going on in northern New Mexico. So as of this morning, the Calf Canyon and Hermit Peak, these are 2 fires that have basically grown together. That's how we refer to it, as a complex fire for folks who are this is the first briefing that you are attending. We have 138,912 acres that are part of this fire. It is only 20% contained. Over 6,000 homes are evacuated. We believe that we have 166 homes that have been destroyed. I want to clarify and define that in 1 minute. And we're still in the process of confirming. There's a very specific federal requirement about how we do that. The clarification is this: there may be individuals who know unequivocally through either a sheriff's report or a state police officer's mention or a family nearby that they've lost their home and it's not included in our number. It will get included when we can make those assessments. We don't want folks trying to do these assessments themselves, and it's not inclusive of other structures, livelihoods, livestock, and any number of other losses that we know we will be identifying. You cannot have 6,000 people evacuated, and you cannot have 140,000 acres burned through many communities in the north, through several counties, without having more damage, and we are clear. But this is what we know as confirmed. 1 house lost to 1 New Mexico family is too many. We are very grateful for the work of the firefighters and first responders. In all of these fires, we've only lost 2 New Mexicans. I'm incredibly proud of the individuals who are working diligently day and night to save lives while they put this fire out and continue to get their arms around what's going on in the north. The Cooks Peak Fire is now at 59,076 acres. It is 72% contained. Good news, given that the weather, and remember, fires create their own weather or atmospheric conditions. Our enemy with this fire isn't just the fuel and the extremely dry conditions in the state and in our forests, but it is the wind. And when the wind is this dangerous and this unpredictable, and we've got gusts up to 70 miles per hour on many days, there is no way that you can actively pursue putting the fire out. It requires ground crews digging trenches and containment lines. It's not like putting out a house fire. You don't drive a fire truck and spray water. That doesn't mean that we aren't doing some of that mitigation efforts to key buildings and properties where we can, and it doesn't interfere with the core mission of getting our arms around the CAF Hermit Peaks fire. But this requires air support. These are areas that you can't hike to. Requires air support and the ground lines to contain the fire. There are more than 1,200 men and women actively working on this fire, including we continue to get additional federal teams, strike teams, tag teams. These are folks that are experts at these kinds of fires. They work with our local folks, and we're bringing in personnel from a variety of states and the federal government to continue to deal with this complex fire, and they are. We have 800 homes evacuated in Cooks Peak. We have no confirmed, remember that language, confirmed, structures lost. And the fire had minimal growth yesterday. 72% contained, all good news. Again, one burst of terrible wind or weather, and that could shift. These are all high-risk fires. I'm going to make that very clear. Every single one of the fires that we're working on today in the state of New Mexico all have high risk. The biggest risk is the complex CAF and Hermits Peak. The Cerro Pelado fire, which is located on federal land just east of Jemez Springs, has burned 22,314 acres. A Type 1, that's the most strategic, right, team for complex fires or difficult fires. An incident management team is managing this fire because it is also a complex fire, moving quickly in very difficult ground to manage with lots of communities and homes in its path. So that is getting the attention that it also needs. We have 200 homes evacuated, 3 homes confirmed loss, and we believe more losses are likely in this fire. Again, these are all tragic. We don't want anything lost, but this is why we evacuate you, because we are concerned that the fire will sweep through a community. This is why we ask folks to leave. The fire grew by 4,429 acres as of yesterday. A couple more updates, our announcement for the day, and we'll take questions. With 6,000 people evacuated and affected in northern New Mexico, principally San Miguel, Mora, Colfax counties, but not limited to those counties. We have people primarily living with friends and relatives, sheltering in Vegas where it's still safe, in Taos, in Penasco, and I think people are in Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and any number of other communities where they have family. I want to thank those families for stepping up and making room and arrangements for their loved ones. Others are still being sheltered at shelters that are stood up in Las Vegas, in Taos, in Penasco. In addition, we've got a number of people, we've got 500 people nearly who are sheltering at Glorieta. We have room for about another 100 plus 120 at Glorieta, and we've made arrangements for sheltering in Santa Rosa. And in particular, in Santa Rosa, they've got a very effective site for folks who might need additional privacy and health and medical support, like senior citizens or folks who are in assisted living, board and care, or related type support services. So that is now available in Santa Rosa. More is being made available. We continue to identify locations and supports statewide to make sure that people have safe housing, access to food, and day-to-day supplies. Big shout out to every single New Mexican who's donated financially and who's directly delivering food, goods, and supplies to these communities through their churches, shelters, and any number of other organizations and entities. I am actually today not concerned about getting those supplies moving. It's happening routinely. The Guard delivers those, state police deliver those, state actors deliver those. We continue to take requests from emergency managers. That's how this works. County, sheriffs, they make the decisions, they have the training, they make the calls, we wrap around them and provide everything else. We are providing everything from cash vouchers through a private sector partner that's paid for by the state, that's Help New Mexico, to any number of other resources, including behavioral health counseling, and so it's crisis counseling and emergency, and to figuring out school and child care supports and operations everywhere folks are being sheltered, including delivering health care and prescriptions where we need them, and we're moving those, I think, fairly effectively. That's not to say to anyone watching that every single issue has been addressed in the way that we would like it to. We want it to be immediate. Sometimes it's harder to deliver. So, what is the most important thing we do? Save lives. Second most important thing we do is contain and put out these fires. Don't let any of these other high-risk fires get out of control. And lastly, which is why I'm actually incredibly proud of the work of the state of New Mexico and our local partners. If we didn't have the best local first responders, I can tell you that we would not be announcing we're the first state in the nation to do. There's more than $29 million in the north. $29 million expended to date, with $2 million additional every single day to put out these fires and to support this community. And more is coming. The state has more emergency dollars that it can direct, and it will. But the big one is getting a presidential disaster declaration. Now, this may seem like this is pro forma, and why wouldn't you have that when you have a federal government who certainly is partially to blame for the situation that we're in one of the, in fact, the biggest fire in the United States, the Hermits Peak Fire. But it is not pro forma. And in fact, these disaster declarations at the federal level, which unlock nearly unlimited resources to make states and communities and individuals whole, do not occur until after the emergency is dealt with. And the reason is that they require a very sophisticated level of effort to identify what the losses are. Very specific, very narrow, very arduous, very time-consuming, related to well after the fire is put out. Well, I'm unwilling to wait. I have 6,000 people evacuated. I have families who don't know what the next day looks like. I have families who are trying to navigate their children, their health care resources, figure out their livelihoods. And they're in every single little community, and it must feel to them like they are out there on their own. Well, you're not. So we have been working feverishly, and we are going to be the very first state in the nation to have a presidential declaration accepted and signed by the president, unlocking all of these resources for watershed recovery, restoration of all of those wildlands, and personal, direct financial reparation and assistance before the fire is out. And we are submitting this today. The president is very clear that that is coming, and we have every indication that we'll be the first state to be able to advance this request and unlock these resources for New Mexicans. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that's occurred to get this done. It has not been easy. And for folks who have felt like maybe we weren't as present, I'm really clear about what's going to have to happen the second we get this fire out. And we're going to protect the families in New Mexico. They're my first priority. And so I am signing this declaration request All right, what's the date?
30.
Okay, I'm just making sure you guys are clear what day this is. We've been working on this fire for well over a month. These days are all blending together. The people who are fighting this fire are absolutely amazing. Our request for a presidential federal disaster declaration is hereby signed and complete, and New Mexicans should expect that declaration by the White House forthwith. All right. Do we have questions?
I have two quick questions, just specifically. Do you know how many people are remaining in their homes in evacuation go areas, and also how many people are without power?
I'm going to defer that question to the experts in the room, including Mr. Adencon. I don't. I will tell you that the answer for me is too many. I want to take an opportunity, which is not part of your question, but it has come to us in the numerous meetings that we've been to on the ground, including myself, in primarily Las Vegas, but in the north, that there's a sense that when it's a mandatory evacuation, that we evict people from their homes. We do no such thing. But it does mean that we've made the decisions based on the local calls from local experts, the emergency managers in the county and the sheriffs, primarily, that it's no longer safe for us to be in, and it's no longer safe for you to be there. That means an ambulance can't get to you, that when power is either lost because of the winds or cut off because it's a fire hazard, that we're not in a position to provide support. It is a very damaging, emotional situation for those families who have loved ones who have not left, and for a governor and other local elected leaders who are worried about those families that we cannot adequately support because they have chosen to stay home. We talk about it every single day about what we can do, and it is very extremely limited. And in fact, I have no doubt that we have people without power who are on oxygen. I have no doubt we have individuals who are running out of food and water, and it is a terrible tragedy. And the second it's safe, we will go back in and assess and support those individuals, no matter their decision. But while it's unsafe, we are not in a position to do that. I will tell you this, that I know that we know how many, because we're making calls, particularly to seniors, through aging and long-term services, through state police, through other first responders, and we do that in coordination with the local sheriffs and undersheriffs in those communities. Primarily now, Mora County, we've been spending a lot of time with residents who did not evacuate out of Mora County. So we are making calls, and we urge them to leave safely if we can assist, if that's still safe, and we want to get a general sense of their conditions, but we don't have the ability to serve everyone in that environment, and that's why we ask you to leave. Diego, do you have a number?
I do not have a number. It's probably in the hundreds. It's a moving number. It changes daily because we have people that are messaged directly, neighbors, EMs, through us directly, National Guard. State Police is a major presence out there, literally knocking on doors. We have some limitations when it comes to power, as you know, cell towers that have been damaged. We're on the ground and encouraging people to move. We are very aware of it. As the governor mentioned, we are focused on aging population that have been contacted directly, if not by phone, in person. And that, I take this moment to stress how important it is to evacuate if you're in go status. Listen to the professionals around you. There is significant issues for us getting back to you in the event of an emergency, such as a heart attack, a broken arm, usual 911 calls. It limits our ability, and we may not be able to get to you if you're in that area. So I take this opportunity to make that point. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, and I think you did a much better job than I did, Mr. Adencon, which is we don't want to abandon anyone. You know, our job is to try to support to the highest degree every single New Mexican, no matter the decisions that they make. But there are situations where we may not be able to do that. And that concern weighs heavy, and I know that it's weighing very heavily on their families who are reaching out to us, asking us to do more. But we do have those limitations and those risks, and we want to be candid, we always would, but provide that candor about those risks. They're real.
Okay.
Too soon?
I'm sorry, he does. But out of that dress, he's not as good looking as you are. You are still quite a catch, Craig Wesley.
Thank you, sweetheart. Right back at you.